Hi, my name is Chris, and today I'm going to be discussing one of my videos that I've previously published called ACIM True Thoughts, in which I discuss ideas from the Course in Miracles. And the idea being to listen to and mentally repeat true thoughts in order to reinforce healing and understanding. Today, in this video, I'd like to discuss some of these true thoughts and get a sense of where these ideas are coming from and discuss them in a little more detail, so that if you've listened to the True Thoughts videos and you wanted a little more insight into some of the ideas, then that's what I'm going to attempt to do today. I'm not going to cover every single thought from the original video, because some of them I think are basic enough and fundamental enough to the Course that you can get the gist of it by reading the Course, while some of these I can add something of my own to it that hopefully will let you know where I'm coming from when I chose these ideas, and give you some background thinking to support each of them. So let's begin. The first thought that I wanted to talk about was, no one can hurt me in reality. People only appear to hurt me in the illusion. Society cannot hurt me in reality. I am not a victim. In order to understand this idea, we have to look beyond appearances. The world is a tightly knit illusion, and that illusion appears to create an unbroken whole. In other words, we appear to live in a physical world, and that is so fundamental that nobody in their right mind would dare to contradict that. But the truth is that, in fact, the entirety of what appears to be happening to us is an illusion. And what is actually happening is that the entire experience of our physical life is happening inside our own mind. From the day that we're born to the day we die, and everything in between is happening in our mind. And the stars, the trees, the physical world are all happening in our own mind as an idea. There is no physicality in physicality, and everything that is happening to us is fundamentally an illusion. You are not a victim, because what's happening is happening in your mind out of your own choice. At some point, you, the person that you are in reality, chose to experience an illusory identity and an illusory world in order to understand the idea of guilt. In reality, the idea of guilt does not exist. And so, you decided to explore the idea of guilt. And the only way to, you can do that is to abandon reality and to replace it with a false world created by guilt. In other words, the only way to understand guilt is to experience it. No one can hurt you in reality. This is because in reality, things are set up in such a way that each person is free to do what they want. There is no malice, that is to say, there's no ill will, and there's no possibility of a person hurting another person. Every single person is having the experience they want all the time. Other people serve as symbols in a person's mind. In other words, other people exist not outside of you, but inside of you, in a completely different configuration than we're used to thinking about. So, if you stop and you meet Tom, Tom is, in reality, a symbol in your mind. Tom is a real person, but Tom is also a symbol or a representation of something. So in reality, if you meet Tom, it's because you want to meet Tom. And if you're not with Tom, it's because you don't want to be with Tom. You have the experience that you want. Love for God, and love for other people is the overriding basis of reality. Your freedom would be meaningless without it. Nobody is looking to force you to do or be anything that you don't want to do or be. While in the physical world, almost everyone you meet has an agenda for you. Do this, go here, work, stress, carry this burden. You're constantly being asked to self-sacrifice. You're constantly being asked to do certain things, regardless of whether those things are good or bad for you. It's more of an issue of everyone attempting to carry as little of a burden as possible, which means that people are bullied into carrying a societal burden. So essentially, the basis for this idea is that the physical world is an illusion. What we see is actually mental and happening inside our own mind. Guilt, as we see it, as we experience it, becomes a pseudo-reality that we live inside of. And we're stuck inside the context of that pseudo-reality. Part of the effects of guilt is the shattering of consciousness, so that we are disconnected from our true self, our self in reality, as well as God. This is necessary in order for us to understand guilt, although guilt cannot really be understood because it doesn't mean anything, since it's not real. I always like to say that guilt is like the square root of -2. It's something that doesn't exist, but can be imagined using symbols. In other words, a mathematician can create a whole world of symbols to express things that are unreal, like unreal numbers. But that doesn't make those numbers real. It just means that we've created a set of symbols to describe unreality. The next idea that I'd like to discuss is, I am not a physical being, and my physical identity is an illusion, just as my body is an illusion, and the objects and things that I see outside myself are illusions. Guilt expresses itself as an entire world of experience. Guilt expresses itself as a universe of experience. We look at the stars, at galaxies, at the earth, and we see these things as unbreakable realities. They exist, they are real, and their reality cannot even be questioned. To do so would be insanity. But the truth is that everything that is happening to us is happening within our own consciousness. Space, time, and matter are all representational. They represent the shattered image shown to us by guilt. You have to remember that guilt has to create an entire universe of experiences that are unreal, but also make sense together to form a single unified picture. Now, that picture doesn't have to be meaningful. It doesn't have to mean something. It simply has to be a coherent whole. It has to be believed in order for us to be able to buy into the reality of it, which then in turn cuts us off from God. But what guilt ultimately cuts us off from the most is innocence. Innocence is the one idea, the one concept that we are the most cut off from. The reality of guilt, the reality of sin, the reality of harming others or hurting ourselves is seemingly undeniable. This is the ultimate accomplishment of guilt, to show us a universe where we are condemned and where other people are condemned and hurt by us, and our very act of existing is an attack on others. Your physical being and your physical identity are part of this illusion, but it's all mentally generated. The objects you see outside yourself are not real. They are responses to what you're feeling inside. In other words, if you're upset, if you're angry, if you're scared, There's a world outside of you that is causing you to feel these feelings. It is evoking within you these feelings. So, in essence, everything that we see is there as a prop, as a stage, to evoke in us a set of feelings, just like a play would be acted out on a stage, and the characters, while that we know that they're not real, allow us to relax into and buy into the seeming reality of the play as it's being played out, so that we buy into the illusion and thus into the emotional world created by those characters. And in the same way, everything that's happening to us is to evoke feelings within us. Guilt creates guilt-based feelings, happiness, but also sadness and pain and depression and so forth. All these feelings, positive and negative, are responses to what we see. The entire world is nothing but a prop, a stage play created in our own mind to evoke in us the feelings that we need to feel in order to think through guilt. The process of thinking through guilt is at the very core of all of this. Why is any of this happening? Why is guilt attacking us? Because we chose to think about guilt. And we will continue to think about guilt until we realize, A, that guilt has no meaning, B, that guilt has no value, and C, there's no reason for us to stay in the world of guilt whatsoever. When we've realized these three things and applied them completely, then our attachment to guilt will dwindle to nothing, and ultimately we will leave the world either through dying or simply re-emerging in reality. The next idea is everything good in me now is in my true identity. Everything positive within you exists in your real identity. You would never lose anything by returning to yourself as you are in reality. Your true identity, your identity in reality, is entirely positive and contains everything that's positive within you. However, it contains many positive things that don't currently appear to be within you. However, what you appear to be lacking in terms of moral character, in terms of good qualities, all of these things exist within you now. They're simply covered up by the illusion. In other words, guilt exists in part to separate you from your own goodness, your own worth, the qualities that would make you value and love yourself. This is part of the function of guilt. So everything good within you now is in your true identity, which is in reality. A great deal of the reason that you struggle with your character and with not being the person that you want to be is because you retain guilt in your mind. As long as you retain guilt in your mind, you retain attack. You see other people as the problem. They are victimizing you. You are a victim because of them. Or, conversely, that you are the victimizer. That you make other people suffer. That you are the bad guy somehow. The bottom line is that guilt has created a complex set of circumstances which separates you from you. Because you, due to the nature of the involvement of guilt in your mind, cannot see yourself as you are in reality, you are not in a position to judge yourself in reality. Therefore, as long as you are in guilt, you do not know who you are. You can only respond to the self that you see in guilt, whose only purpose is to separate you from reality and prevent you from realizing that you are innocent and that you are free and that you are loved and loving, and there is nothing negative within you at all. The physical world seems to prove that this is wrong. But it does so by creating confusion in your mind and by shattering your identity into pieces so that you are cut off from reality. And we need to remember that God is the nature of reality. God is not a deity. God is reality itself, the very core of reality and the nature of reality. If you cannot see God, then you cannot see reality. God is the truth. And everything that stands between us and God stands between us and the truth about other people and ourselves. There is no world to save, and there is no external reality to hold on to or to cling to. The idea of clinging to physical life is ridiculous, since everything in physical life is a form of attack against us. Everything that we see around us is a symbol that represents attack. We are innocent. We did not deserve to be attacked, but in order to understand guilt, we had to, at some point, enter into the illusion and thereby lose awareness of our own innocence and of many of our own good qualities so that we could buy into the belief that we deserve to be attacked. If we were perfect, if we were whole within ourselves, then we would see with great clarity that we deserve nothing but happiness and peace and joy and love. So the idea of a world based on attack would be ridiculous to us. Guilt, however, having separated us from our true nature, confused us and victimized us, has informed us that we are somehow less than we should be, and that we somehow have failed to be what we should be, and in our failure to be what we should be, we deserve to be punished. When ironically it is guilt itself which has stripped us of our own positive nature and awareness of the truth and everything that could possibly help us. Guilt has done what the ultimate enemy would do to you: to drug you, to confuse you, to torture you, and then to create a false story that you were to blame. And in your amnesia and confusion, you buy into that idea. I was listening to a podcast where a man talked about having gone to India, and a prescription drug that he had to take had caused him to suffer a breakdown in amnesia. And he was taken to a place where people who are, Westerners who have taken too many drugs are often taken to receive some assistance. And it was assumed that he was a drug addict. And he was told that he was a drug addict, informed that he was a bad person, that he'd made his parents upset, and that he had put his life in danger for nothing. And he was so filled with guilt that he cried and cried, and was overwhelmed with feelings of guilt over an event that he didn't even remember. The people who had laid this guilt trip on him had no idea who he was or what he was going through, but assumed that he was like many other people who had taken too many drugs while in India and therefore was the cause of his own problems. Their assumption led to him feeling guilt that was completely undeserved and to suffer a great deal as a result of it. This is exactly what happens to us in the physical illusion. We are deprived by guilt of what we need to be whole, and then punished for it. It's an absurd and ridiculous situation, and one that we must escape from. In order to escape from it, we must make it our priority to see that guilt is an illusion, to stop investing in guilt in our mind, to recognize anger towards others and anger towards ourselves, judgment and blame, to see them for the poisons that they are, and to see with guiltless eyes instead, and come to understand and to value that guiltlessness as a way of being, so that we can become more and more invested in it to the point where the idea of guilt is nothing but an absurdity. I hope this discussion has been helpful, and I will continue to make more videos discussing some of these fundamental ideas. Thanks very much.